Hi, welcome back to Kick My Asana with Melanie Dawn. Today we are doing grounding works. We're bringing ourselves down into the foundation of the earth. We aren't going to be standing up. Everything that's happening is going to be from either seated, very low to the ground, or laying on our backs. If you have props, blocks, pillows, I'm going to take a pillow and place it under my sit bones to start. And we'll start you can either start in bound angle or just a nice seated cross-legged position. I always take the same cross legs, so I'm gonna take something different. And this is part of the pursuit of yoga, really, is moving towards discomfort and becoming familiar with discomfort. Our society, our cultural conditioning has had us to believe that the more that we push away things that we label negative or bad, the more good that we have in our lives. But that actually just leads to a whole lot more suffering, because while we're experiencing the good times, we're trying to stay away from the bad. The goal of yoga is to be present, and to be present is to accept exactly what is as it is. And that's what the opening of this practice is. Wherever I'm at, whatever I've labeled good or bad, I want to come into it and just see it for what it is. So if you have a really cozy position that you usually go into, I want you to try to see what it would feel like if you did the opposite, if you could choose the different leg to wrap out in front. And then once you get there, taking a nice tall spine, the spine connects us to this cosmic energy that exists within us all, coming in through the crown. And the root is establishing our connection to where we have come from, the earth, nature, Mama Gaia, all of the names to know that we came from this solid ground. And in that solid ground are reflections of us, and in us are reflections of it. We'll take a long sip of breath in as you close your eyes, soften your shoulders, soften your jaw, and then take a big empty out. Become aware of any thoughts that are moving across the mental space, any thoughts that are taking you out of where you currently are, and just acknowledging them, seeing them, not avoiding them. And even if you have chosen to squeeze in your practice and you should be doing this or that, if you are here, be here. There is so much suffering involved with being in one place and wishing or needing to be in another. If you are here, be here. There is nothing preventing you from being here except for the mind. If you need to go, go. But if you are here, choose here. If you are completing this practice at the end of the day, thinking about it in the course of your day, how many times you were actually present, how many times you had the 5 sensory intake of what was going on around you without being somewhere else. And if this is your morning practice, before you go into the day, choose how often you'll be present. Choose how often you'll check in. We'll play with the pranayama of breath retention. It is one of the most powerful energy breath practices that we can do. We've done it multiple times throughout this challenge. It is by far my favorite, most easy to do, causes the least amount of residual stress inside the body from what I can see as a pattern of energy. So taking that full breath in, flooding the entire torso with spirit, with breath, with ether, holding without collapsing the spine. Open your mouth, exhale. Can you feel the softness drip over the shoulders? Take another sip of breath in. Fill down through the hip sockets, into the legs, fill the feet. Hold the breath once you're full. And let it all go. Last big sip of breath in. It comes in through the belly, expands in all four directions, widens the rib cage, lifts the heart, lightens the upper body. Hold. Continue to hold. Know that this is completely within you. And empty. You can open your eyes and settle them just slightly ahead of you. In yoga, this is what is called a drishti. We'll often use this as in a balancing posture, but I'd like to teach you while we're grounded so that you can get the concept. A drishti is a spot that is something that you can fixate on, center your mind and your breath on, and it helps you to stay calm. The chitta, the vritti inside the mind, it stays calm when we're focused. So something just slightly in front of you, no shadows moving over top of it, something that's fixed, and lock your gaze there. This is your drishti. When you have your drishti, and it's okay to blink the eyes, open and close the eyes, but continue to zero in on your drishti. As you hone in on your drishti, watch what happens inside the body. I am steadily focused, just slightly in front of me. You can become more aware of the slightest changes inside the body, and we're going to start with the low pelvic floor. And you probably heard me say Mula Bandha, which is a root lock, the very root of our energy center. We're locking it, holding the breath inside of it, and creating a spiral of energy of Shakti through the root. So gaze is forward at your drishti, shoulders are soft, and then thinking about pulling up from the pelvic floor. If you've done Kegels, just start to do 5, 6 Kegels, pulling up and in from the low pelvic floor. And this is the space between the genitals for both genders. And on your 5th one, you'll pull up and hold. And if you have a weakened pelvic floor, you may not be able to feel it, but while you're locked in on your drishti, imagine as though you can feel your pelvic floor, your root lock, go into place and hold. Take a full breath in, hold it into the root, pull up and squeeze tight, and then let it go. So that was the biggest grip we have of Mula Bandha. That was our strongest grip. Now we're going to aim for what is the subtlest grip. So I can hold Mula Bandha, but I can continue to breathe. So this is like where we were just at a 10 for a lock. We want to be somewhere between 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. This is just pulling up and in, but staying loose through the hips, loose through the belly. The internal lock is the only thing turned on. Everything else is soft or supportive. Breathing for 3. And it may flutter, may go in and out, and this is definitely a practice. Last breath. Release the lock, release the breath. Another 5 Kegels, pull up and in strong. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold. Strong, powerful lock. See if you can squeeze it tighter by pulling the belly button in and up. Pulling the sit bones to center. Empty your breath, release your lock. Visit with the subtleness of the lock. Pull up and in slightly, but stay soft through the muscle body. non-gripping through the entire physical body outside of the lock. My spine is strong and stable, but not gripping. It holds me. This lock is subtle. I can feel it fluttering, becoming aware of the tiny sensations that exist within the pelvic floor. Last 2 breaths, continuing to flutter, continuing to lock, subtly lock is the words. And release. That is our bond lock. We want that subtle engagement when we are in our core and transitioning postures. You can use it throughout your day. I'm going to move my pillow off to the side, take my legs long, straighten them out. Maybe I need to have a bend in them if my hamstrings are tight, and then my pillow would come into play here as well, just tucked in behind the knees. For now, arms rise up, spine becomes tall, and you can see as the arms rise up and the shoulders stack over the hips that you become a lot stronger through the back body as soon as the arms start to rise. We want to hold that strength as the fingers reach for the toes. Maybe they only come maybe 3 inches from where they started, or they can take it all the way down and grip the bottom of the foot. I'm quite tight today, so this is where I'm staying. Once you have your flat back, this is as far as I can go. I'm going to drop my hands, either grab the backs of the thighs, calves, or ankles. Strong flat back. Pushing your sit bones back, subtle engagement of Mula Bandha. And even that mentally, that engagement, especially if you can't feel the physical engagement, that can begin to tire the mind itself, which is really the practice of yoga, is tiring the mind's relentless pursuit to be anywhere but here. We'll rise back up. This will be where you're going to decide what's right for your body. If you have a block or anything that you can use to just lift your leg over, you'll gather that up here. I have a block. If you don't have anything, we're just going to play pretend, which I'm excellent at. So if you have a block, you'll place it to the outside of the right ankle on its flattest side. So this is its thinnest side is where I want to start, just outside the right ankle. I am going to do this without supporting myself through my hands, but if this is your first time doing it and you want to work to build that core and your hip flexor strength, your hands can come behind you and you can even lean back slightly. So I'll show you what that will look like. On your exhale, your right leg lifts away from the earth, traces to the outside of your mat, and drops down either outside the block or outside your imaginary block. Exhale, hip lifts, leg lifts back into center. So I'm coming forward. Oh man, my quad did not like that one. I may not be coming forward after all. We'll do 4 more of those. Heel lifts, over to the right, touch down, back to center. Lifting, right, touch down, back to center. 2 more. I forget how many I said we were going to start with. Back to center. Last one. Back to center. And if the block is too much, go into your imaginary block. It may just be even like as tall as a hair flat on the earth. Switching sides. Option to come hands behind. Left heel lifts. Foot traces over to the left, drops down, touch. Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, so that belly lock, keeping the low spine hugged in, nice and tight, is engaged. Heel comes up, back to center. Up, over, down, up, over, down. 3 more. Very, very interesting to just see how the body responds to these targeted movements. We'll take ourselves, take the hands behind the body, turn the wrists towards your back. You can keep legs straight or take a bend through the knees, plant the soles of the foot down onto the mat. This is easier, coming from soles of the feet touching down, bend through the knees. You press up the hips into a reverse tabletop. If you want to try for a little bit more core, then keeping the legs straight, kicking down through the heels, lift up through the pelvis and press. I may have to walk my feet forward slightly. Breathing for 4, 3, 2, 1. Last breath. Hips drop down and arms will reach forward, coming into a fold. Rounded back, tucked chin, heavy head. Coming back up through center, we'll make our way onto our back body. Option to have a pillow to take underneath the hips as we do core, or you can always use your hands underneath the hips. I like to place my hands underneath my hips so that my index fingers and thumbs are touching. There's a triangle shape between the hands, and then my legs are now arms. Legs come up. Belly is locked, so that subtle engagement of Mula Bandha. Heels are stacked over top of hips. And we'll take the right leg down to tap the mat. Don't hold your breath. Exhaling on the exertion keeps you from holding your breath. Inhaling to rise. And empty, sink the left heel down. Breath in, rise. Continue to drop opposite heel as you exhale. Use your inhales to come up. The slower, the better. The slower, the more discomfort, the more the mind wants to say, let's get through this. I don't like this. Really, we don't have to be here. And I think that may be a lot of our suffering, is that we can exit most things in our life at any point in time. I don't like this. I don't have to be here. But what if we got comfortable being uncomfortable? And that's not saying that anything unsafe, but right here, right now, what I'm doing is only creating more strength inside my body, more resiliency inside my body. There is nothing bad happening here unless I'm in pain or you're in pain. But everything that's happening here is pretty much, I just don't want to do hard work, right? I don't want to be uncomfortable. Taking 2 more each side. And landing, left heel is the last one that touches down. No rush to get there. Should be hopefully feeling this somewhere. Hands can come out. Fingers will reach up. And as you exhale, hands and toes are going to drop away from each other to from midline. And then as soon as the low back starts to lift, for me, it's already here. I'm going to hold, breathe, and come back to center. Fill up with another inhale and see how far I can part my hands and toes before my low back starts to lift. Once that happens, I pause, I don't go any further, and I come back through to center. And we continue doing that for 5, 6, 7 more times, just playing with this strong core. Don't let the pelvic floor go loose. You have your breath to lean into. You have the knowledge that heat is growth. Pain equals a standstill for growth because it always inhibits you from practicing. But heat, where there's heat, there is opening happening, there is strength happening. Go into that sensation. Don't shy away from it. Whatever we've labeled as bad is actually probably good for us. We just don't want to do it. 2 more. And I know we're probably at about 28 by now, but I'm playing. Playing can be hard. Last one. And come back in and hug both hands over top of the shins, roll from side to side. I bet you thought when you saw grounded, this is gonna be easy. Never. All right, so we'll take legs long, heels away, heels reaching towards base of the mat, arms overhead as much as they can come. You can interlace your fingers, forearms or upper arms alongside ears, shoulders tucked down and back. And then just seeing if you can lift your heels away from your mat. Maybe just try with your right heel first. Okay, that was doable, easeful. Left heel, yep. Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can lift either of my heels away from my mat without hurting myself, without taking too much pressure into my back. And you know what? I can't, I cannot. So all I'm gonna do is energetically do the movements. I'm lifting, but I'm not lifting. I'm lifting, but I'm not lifting. Imagine as though I'm lifting and then setting them back down. Energetic lift, setting them back down. So when you start to work into presses in yoga, this will be exactly what it feels like, unless you're lifting your heels, then I don't know how. But anyways, my core is very weak right now. You could be lifting, but don't be injuring. So heels come away, and you know what? I'm maybe starting to get that lift there. Maybe I'm starting to get that lift. I'm playing with it. I'm feeling it. Last 3. Last one. Take your hands down onto your hip points. Draw your shoulder blades down your back. Lengthen your tail to the base of your mat. And then play with the right heel lift again. Somewhat easier. Left heel lift. Both heels lift. You know what? It's the same amount of hard. Take your hands underneath your hips. See if you can play with that, and then lift. And that's just so much easier. So we can work energetically, taking the hands away, imagining as though the heels are lifting, engaging all the muscular components that would do it, or take hands underneath hips and be able to lift. Take 10. Last one. I wasn't really counting. And then if you have your hands underneath your hips, you'll walk your feet until they're flat and heels are almost touching the glutes. Maybe the fingers can brush the back of the heels. And we'll take a little bridge. From little bridge, you can press up with your exhale, lift the heart. Let's start to play with what wheel would look like, but don't do wheel. We didn't do enough twisting yet, unless you've already done a lot of twisting. So this is the setup on my way to wheel. If I wanted to play with wheel, I would take my hands outside my ears, turn my fingers towards, well, this is where you really want to have your hair tied up, turn my fingers toward my shoulders and have my elbows reaching up towards the sky and upper arms hugged in nice and tight to the ears. Everything is hugging into center, knees and elbows. So this is me getting ready for my wheel, but I'm not going to do my wheel. I'm just prepping my wrists, my hands, breathing for 4, 3, 2, last breath. See if you can kick the pelvis up any higher. And big empty out. Drop the tailbone towards the heels. Hug the knees over top of the heart. And take some nice rock and rolls back and forth. Today, that is our grounded practice. We'll close in happy baby. You can stay in happy baby as long as you'd like, and then empty out your practice in Shavasana. Body becomes long, contents of what was disperses on the mat, absorbed by the earth. Knees come out, outside the rib cage, heels stack over top of knees, inside or outside arch grip. Option to stay here or straighten through the legs and come into somewhat, I don't even know what this is called, but it's the same as like a seated forward fold or a standing forward fold. When you're ready, we'll close our practice into Shavasana, full belly breath in. Empty out. And I always think about, as I'm giving that final exhale, just dumping out the contents of everything that I thought my practice should be, everything that I thought I should be, that I didn't achieve or didn't make that practice. That is the contents of that dumping out. This is a quick reset. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Namaste.